Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 156 of Kouryer podcast. Our today's guest is Mr. Farid Sandoval, and no, he's not Iranian, he's Mexican. He told me the story of how he got his name, and I'm not gonna do spend too much time on that. He's a film concept artist working at Technicolor, which we're gonna talk about it at the podcast as well, from Los Angeles, United States. Now, before we jump into the questions and just not just a question, the whole podcast, the whole shebang, let me just mention something. In the for contact section of the captions, you can see his Instagram ID, his art session link, and the link to his website. So you can check them all out. And you can also check out Technicolor website as well for some, really interesting stuff they're working on. So, there's that. And I always want to mention this at the start of the episode so people don't actually skip it, So if you're actually listening to this on Instagram as the 5 minutes snippet, you can actually, get all this information. So how are we doing today?
Pretty good. Thank you for having me.
All right, awesome. And well, I don't know about you, but I already told you, but I didn't even drink coffee, by the way, for last night. I'm just trying to stay awake for the sheer will of determination.
That's crazy.
Yeah, that's exactly crazy. No, don't try this, guys. It's not really good for your health. Always try to have a balanced sleep schedule. But yeah, I kind of honestly missed doing this podcast. It's been kind of like 20 days. Maybe for a lot of you guys, it doesn't seem like a lot of time, but for the standard of when I used to bang out episodes every day, 20 days seems like a lot. But but honestly, I've been just taking a break from everything, and I'm just gonna continue podcast pretty casual. I'm not gonna take it serious too much. I'm just trying to try my best to enjoy it, the whole process, more as opposed to worrying about growth aspect of it or anything else. I'm getting to talk with a lot of interesting artists. Win-win. There's no lose, yeah. Right? Exactly. And I hope everyone is listening to this podcast or watching on YouTube, which I suggest everyone to do so, because we're going to do a sketchbook tour on this episode, as we did on a lot of previous episodes. I hope you're all doing fantastic as well. And well, one of the first things I always wonder about every guest is how did they got their start in visual arts and the world of visual arts and design and art and everything. Basically, what moment was it for you when you decided that I want to become an artist? What inspired you, basically, or what was the whole process of it?
I think I was very young. I think I was probably seven years old or something like that. I watched Jurassic Park for the first time, then Independence Days and just alien movies in general. I think they all contributed to me knowing that I wanted to be part of film. And then more recently, I found out, after college, I found out about concept art, and that's my roommate was in animation, and I was in industrial design major, and I got to kind of see his major gave me a window into visual development. And from there, I was like, okay, this is where design and my love for movies kind of come together, and this is what I should do. So I was studying in Canada, and I moved to Los Angeles to pursue that career.
Interesting. And industrial design, that's was one of my first choices when I was in my teen years. When people when you're doing your stuff and people, whether on a school or teachers or family members, stuff see what you're doing and they try to suggest for your future careers or something. And one of the first majors that was brought up early on was for me was industrial design, which is something a discipline that I still kind of like and enjoy. And I sometimes read articles from news of the whole world of industrial design and stuff like that. But here's my question. Do you think the stuff you learned in the industrial design major helped you a lot? In what ways did that help you and give you an edge as an artist in compared to other people,
Yeah, I think definitely in understanding. So basically concept art, there's a lot of fine arts and illustration skills, like traditional painting and composition. And so there's a lot of these very traditional atelier style kind of knowledge. And I think what industrial design did for me gave me more of a thought process to break down complex problems or understand briefs. So I think it was really good in the sense that it allowed me to break down, a complex image or a complex set of images into digestible things that I can work through. So yeah, it definitely helped in that way. But at the same time, I was coming from a more traditional background from high school. I went to college and I did design, and I definitely I lost a lot of the skills that I had before entering college. So I kind of traded fine arts for design. And so then after I finished college, I had to come back to fine arts to go back to, complementing the skills. And I find that when people ask me about concept art, I think whenever you manage to get a bit of both design and the fine art skills, it's a really good combination.
Yeah, exactly. I think in the future, I think like right now, everyone's learning the new generation of concept artists that are being brought up. Like, they're kind of like all of them, most of them. No, actually, all of them is super wrong. Sorry. But the majority of them are learning from usually the same resources and courses and, basically similar stuff, similar like methodologies and ways of thought. But the thing about art is that you need to realize is, especially as it is a creative, at its core, a creative field. I mean, we should have this type of mindset for everything, not just art, is to try to approach a certain subject from different angles and try to find the truth and interesting bits of uniqueness at the intersection of those things. For example, you studied industrial design, then you studied fine arts, and you kind of mesh them together, and in the intersection of these two things, you kind of could carve out some sort of understanding of visual libraries of stuff for your works. That's just an example. And even for example, I know a lot of everyone knows this, by the way, not just me. In character design, a lot of character designers to get actually good at anatomy, they study Gray's Anatomy, which is actually not necessarily an art book,
Yeah.
Like maybe, for example, behind you, I see some lovely plants in your apartment, by the way. For example, if you're an environment concept artist and you want to get good at foliage, maybe get a book of botanical, I don't know, encyclopedia or something. That sort of stuff really helps. And what do you think about that? Have you had any experiences like that, or saw anyone try to do something like that recently?
So you're asking me if how I acquired the knowledge? Or...
No, I mean, I'm kind of asking, have you, I mean, of course, you have both yourself or anyone else that you've seen recently, or just in your art journey that you've seen, took a different approach to learning. For example, studied something extra to add to his repertoire of his methodology and stuff,
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, what's very interesting to me is how different each person's learning journey is and the way our brain works. And that's one of my favorite things about being at the studio, is just seeing all those approaches. I have a friend of mine who was almost 80% fine arts and 20% design. And so, I cannot compete with him, or, when it comes to technique. But then we complement each other, because then I come up with a lot of the thought process about the way something is meant to look, and then he has a technique. So I think in the department, all these different learning processes, different ways, the different ways we process visuals and life really translates into a very diverse department. And I think that's what's made us very successful, is that the fact that we have all of these very, very different brains working sometimes on the same problem. And just you were mentioning, for example, I'm not a person that studies. I don't do studies. it's just never worked for me. I don't take notes. Also, I'm not recommending people do this, but this is just the way my brain works. Where I see that some people, like, I'm jealous because they do studies and they get better study by study, you know. So yeah, I guess the answer to the question is like I see it every day, and it's exciting to see how everyone processes life and funnels it into something different, although we all have the same brief.
Yeah, I mean, about studies, I mean, yeah, everyone's, as you said, is kind of different, but I kind of can't imagine, like, it should be like, how do you practice? I mean, if you don't do studies, I mean, you practice like the same exercises, or like, because here's the thing, practices are kind of like a super effective and lazy way of practicing. By lazy, I mean, don't get me wrong, by lazy, I mean, the prompt is already there. You just need to do the work. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
like, you don't have to think, you just need to try your best to recreate whatever that is. I mean, so I kind of don't, like, how do you practice, by the way? I'm just curious now.
Well, I mean, now I'm privileged because I have briefs every day, and I'm just like, I feel like every day I'm pushed into the abyss without wings, and I need to develop them at every show that we do. Every movie is like, oh, so now you need to design a ferry, boom, and I'm pushed, and I'm like, I've never designed a ferry. So it's like, as I'm falling, I'm trying to go through my design process. Okay, like, I'm gonna grab some reference, and I start doing, and I just, like, you know, force my way through the problem. And I think I digest a lot of that information of design, of art, values in that job. And so, you know, the next time I have to design a ferry, I have a lot of this knowledge and stuff. So right now, it's because I have all, you know, I pushed through all of these different topics and styles of movies that I need to design for and paint for, that ends up being my practice. You know, I practice absolutely every day. But before doing this, I think I was just forcing myself to do everything, even if I didn't know how to do it. Like, just, I'm trying to figure out, like, it's like by force. I don't know if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I can definitely understand what you mean. So basically going along with the flow of, like, you know, whatever gets thrown at you, basically. That's what I'm kind of hearing.
Definitely. It's so, for example, if I wanted to draw something that I've never drawn before, I would just start doing it. Like, I wouldn't grab reference. I would just, like, I'm gonna start doing it, and then I get to a point where I get stuck. Like, there's always that point where I'm like, oh, I actually don't know what this looks like. And then that's where I grab reference and I start doing, like, my stuff. But in the end, what I mean by I don't do studies is, like, I'm not copying from life or from the masters. Like, it's just that's never worked for me. I've tried it, and I've always,
even in the beginning.
Even in the beginning, yeah. At the beginning, I was doing a lot of life drawing. That, to me, that's super helpful. Like, drawing definitely from life, for sure. That I did, like, many years. And before the pandemic, every Thursday we had 2 hours of figure drawing at the studio. So, I mean, that stuff, it's so invaluable. And I did a lot of, like, sculpture and, like, so I did do a lot of work. But yeah, what I mean is, like, I always found that I could copy whatever I want. Like, if I see this thing, I can just copy it. But in the end, I didn't learn. And it has to do with just the way I process things. Like, I am just copying, as opposed to some people that are really good at studying and, like, breaking down things.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so I am not one of those people that have that skill to copy and create a process for how to do that. That's just not the way it works for me, particularly. Yeah.
I mean, I think the main reason, and I think a lot of people will, like, remind me by saying this, that you can actually go with this process is because you actually have a solid understanding of the fundamentals. I mean, that's why you can, you know, go with the flow and do all this stuff, you know, and I mean, you also have briefs every day, as you said. And so, I mean, that's kind of like a good practice as well in itself. And there's some, like, an actually interesting tip I want to say, like, a thing that I realized, and I want to say it for everyone to hear. If you're having trouble breaking down stuff, like, whether it be items, whether it be environments, whether it be even characters. I swear, just try to learn Blender like at the beginner levels and try to recreate basic stuff with Blender. All right, now hear me out. When you do that, all right, you'll actually grasp and understand how everything is just works with basic shapes. How like those complex stuff you see is just super basic shapes. It's just beveled a little bit, and there's just like there's nothing complex. And when you actually work with it 3D as well, if you're a 2D artist, do that. And also, if you're a 3D artist, try to seriously try to learn some work on your 2D skills and the sketches as well. Like they kind of complement each other. It's kind of weird. Like you're a 3D artist, you practice 2D to improve your 3D, and then vice versa, which is I swear it's so insane. Like even just a basic amount of even 1 month of dedicated 20 minutes a day would do wonders for a month. Like honestly, this
Definitely.
Yeah.
100%. I mean, when I was even now, but particularly when I was studying, I always felt like, I would do like a class with Kevin Chen at CBA for analytical figure drawing. So, I would learn that. And I would see progress very like you take that class and you're excited and you have all this knowledge and you see progress. And then that progress slowly starts to slow down. And you're like, oh man, I'm stuck. And just like your drawings, they look the same for a long time and you cannot go past the next level. And then at that point, I realized that was a perfect point to move to a different medium to study the same thing. So then I would go, well, now I'm going to do ZBrush sculpture class, analytical figure sculpting. And so, I would go in there and start sculpting and definitely, feel the same thing. Like, oh, I'm learning so much. I'm so good. Then 2 weeks later, you're like, oh, I suck again. And then you don't know why. And then that's a perfect moment to jump into, but you can go back to drawing. And as you're saying, they complement each other, like a gesture and a lot of the principles, they just move from medium to medium and they always apply.
There's also another thing that you kind of mentioned without actually mentioning it directly, which I'm going to rephrase it now, is when you're working on something and you hit a plateau, as you mentioned, like there are certain philosophies, whether in be sports, whether it be just maybe art even in general, that say you have to hardcore practice every day. I mean, great, it's awesome, but I believe seriously, and I think everyone regardless of their personality type or everything, their brain their subconscious burns out. And I swear to God, if you just, for example, you've been practicing hard for 2-3 months, take a 1 week break. Just don't think about drawing at all. Do something else, seriously. Then go back, sleep some nights, just let your subconscious process everything. Then go back to it, see how just how much you've improved. Because if you're just keep pushing yourself and not letting your basically brain, subconscious brain, I don't know the science behind it, but I'm just saying it out of experience, you realize, oh my God, I actually improved a lot. And it's not just in art or stuff like that. For a long time, I actually used to be a competitive submission grappler. I used to be a jiu-jitsu practitioner, right? And I remember, dude, we trained so hard for the 2020 AJP in March 27th before the whole pandemic and lockdown. And I was so pumped and ready. I burned my body to the maximum. And here's the thing, Corona hit and it got locked down the tournament. What happened? 3 months later, our gym illegally, I mean, why do I do this? Yeah, actually illegally, we opened up the gym to practice. I mean, we were all safe and it was a closed group of people. I know a lot of people are going to just say what an irresponsible person you are, or whatever, right? And with that 3-month break and just staying in my room isolated, not just me, all of us, but for me especially, I realized, oh my God, all the moves came to me much more naturally. It became instinct to me. Have you experienced something like that? Are you one of those people who just say, all right, do practice every day hardcore, for the rest of your life, and just no breaks are for pussies and just stuff like that,
No. I mean, definitely when you're in school and you're trying to get your first gig, your first job, there's definitely some of that. I would say that, yeah, particularly at the beginning when you're learning things like perspective, anatomy, and things like that, it's harder to take a break because you are aware that you don't know those things, and it's harder and stuff. But I think as time progresses, the more I realized, like, actually, the least I work, the better my work is. And that's something I had to learn the hard way. Like, I actually hurt my arm. I got tendonitis drawing. Like, I think I was learning ZBrush back then, and I worked for like, I just worked on a portfolio piece for like 20 hours or so
Oh
straight.
God.
Yeah, I'm hurt for the rrest of my life because of that. So
Oh really?
yeah, I mean, it's not a big deal. Honestly,
Oh, alright.
now, it's kind of healed. But if I push it, I can always feel, I can always feel the tendonitis coming back. So all that to say that hasn't worked for me. I know that there's people out there who are painting. I have friends, like, who are in the industry. They're really good, and they're doing studies every day. They finish work and they're drawing, and then on the weekends they go and paint. That they're amazing. I love that. It's just personally, that's not something that's ever worked for me, and I find that I'm more productive and more creative when I put a few hours of work and I go to the kitchen and I try to use my creativity to create a dish. That's cook something, go back for a few hours to do something, and then go to the gym, go back, and like, make plans with friends to stay, like, just absorb life. And then I always notice that when I am taking care of my life, my surroundings, my friends, and all of these things, it shows in my art. Like, I have fresh eyes, and I can identify problems more quickly, and just my ideas are flowing faster. So that's something that's taken a lot of time to learn, but it's one of the most useful things to know.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is, I mean, the kind of sad thing is that for a lot of us, I mean, for me personally, is the case, but I've gotten much better at this, by the way. That, for example, that you need to take a break, but the other side of you is like, no, you have to be like disciplined. This is laziness talking. You shouldn't stop. That there's this conflict of voices in you, and you just need to just don't listen to any voices. Just chill, relax. You need a rest. Come on, don't worry. Nothing's gonna happen. Like, yeah. I mean, that's actually such a big thing. That's actually, as you said, you did it like 20-hour, like, portfolio piece thing, and it was detrimental. And yeah, I mean, I kind of had those experiences like that. I mean, not necessarily for tendonitis, but just similar situations and experiences. Yeah. And I think a lot of people who are listening could also relate to these experiences as well. And well, I mean, we talked about we know in the introduction, I mentioned that you're a film concept artist, and I also mentioned Technicolor. Now, I'm going to ask you some stuff about what is your main branch of design that you're focusing on right now? Assuming it's film concept art, tell us some of your experience of, like, working at Technicolor, and just, how's it been? What's Technicolor about? Just spill the beans, everything.
Got it. So Technicolor, so basically there are like a couple of major VFX studio houses. Obviously you have ILM, Weta, Technicolor. They're the largest ones. Actually, out of the three of them, I think Technicolor might be the largest in size. I think in the amount of people they hire. And then you have DNEG and Frame Store. So these are all VFX houses. And so each one of them tends to have an art department in it that serves multiple movies. So, like, if Technicolor takes a movie that they're working on, like Godzilla, like we did, or Detective Pikachu, whatever, they come to the studio and they're going to do all their VFX with the company. So usually what happens is, like, we are involved both, like, we offer the service of, like, we can help you with pre-production art, visual development, post-production, pre-production, like, we have all of these services as an art department. And it's a very small team, very focused, and we're at a minimum like 4 to 6 people, and at a maximum we can be up to 20 artists that we hire as freelancers to serve one movie or multiple movies at the same time. So what's different from what I do to maybe other concept artist positions is, like, if you're in video games, you may be working on the same video game for like 5 years or 3 years. Same if you're in, like, in-house Disney, Pixar, you will be working in the same movie for a long time. Same if you're in the art department for just one movie, you'll be on set for 1 or 2 years. Whereas me, I work on 10 to 20 movies per year, and I'm rotated, so I get the brief, I do the concepts for 1 to 3 weeks, maybe a month, we ship that out, and in the meantime, we're already receiving another movie while we wait for feedback. And so, I love the fact that I get to design very, very, very different things throughout the entire year, and I never get bored. And I think that's why I'm so lucky. And this is not for everyone. I know some people would prefer to have, like a single project for a long time, but in my case, and for my very distracted brain, this is just like perfect, and that's what I do.
Yeah, awesome. And speaking of working on a lot of multiple variety of projects, how does your design process usually go anytime you want to start working on a project? Basically, what does a structure of your pipeline looks like, basically?
Definitely with so we get the script, pages of the script, or an interview with the director, the brief with the director. It depends. It really depends on the project. And so basically, once we have the script, we have the brief, we start internally talking about, like, me and my art director, hey, how are we going to approach this? Who's going to be the best person to do this? Is it a matter of all of us working on it, or just one artist for the entire month? And so then I always start with mood boards. And basically, this is a way to, we can exchange notes about the movie that you want, but what red means something to me that's very different to red for you. You may be thinking red Coca-Cola, and I'm thinking cherry red, So we create a mood board to kind of like make sure we're talking about the same thing. So, when he says a monster, he's referring to, Loch Ness monster, and I'm referring to an alien. So we go through a couple of rounds of mood boards where we say, like, okay, so this is what you mean. Okay, I like this. I don't like this. I hate this, which is also super important. Once we go through that round, then I have a direction, and I start sketching things. I love line drawing, and so lately, the past 2 or 3 years, I've been putting mainly character and creature design. That's my main focus at the studio. And so I just start doing sketches, send them to the director. Basically, we have a 2 to 3 day deadline every time. Send it, we get feedback, and then I continue to progress. So, it's all about options, 3 options of sketches based on the brief and the lineup that we created. And then it starts to progress and get polished as the rounds of feedback come back and forth, all the way to the final design. All
right. And by the way, I know there's a lot of NDAs involved, I'm aware of that, but is there any project that you can, share with us, what are you working on right now?
Not now.
All right.
Nothing that I can share about now. But we work on things that are sometimes 3 or 4 years away from ever making that will not be made into a movie. So unfortunately, nothing that I'm working on right now I can share.
Yeah, maybe probably in 5-6 years I'll share. You can tell us. All right. Yeah, fair game. By the way, have you heard the news of that? There's supposedly a film has been recorded 2-3 years ago that's going to be aired in 100 years. And the title.
I didn't hear of that. What?
It's actually super it made a lot of headlines. You should definitely check that. By the way, for anyone who's listening, apparently, I'm kind of too sleep deprived to Google right now, but here's the gist of the story. Basically, there's a movie that's been recorded a couple of years ago that the title of it's a futuristic thing. They made 3 scenarios for it, whether it's a dystopia, utopia, and just a neutral, nothing's changed that much. And it's going to be probably aired on 200 and basically at 21023 that year. So it's going to be 100 years from now, and they try to make it something new, which is actually a cool concept, to be honest. But I'm just worried that someone will probably hack the database and just leak the movie before that, and it just kind of ruins the whole vision of the director. And fun.
Yeah, I can see that happening for sure.
No, but they're probably the people who did that probably they've thought about this stuff. I think they know how to save this. I'm not worried about that much, but I hope that doesn't happen. And I think I'm going to be yes, I think it was 21, 02, or 3, either of those years, because I calculated I'm going to be 103 years old when, if I'm still alive by then, uh, the movie is going to be aired by then. But yeah, which is actually a cool concept. I mean, you just said I can tell you in the next 4 or 5 years, and just my brain just went to that headline, which is actually real news, by the way. You should all check it out.
Yeah, I will check it out. It sounds
Super
amazing.
interesting stuff, yeah. And by the way, have your studio worked with any of the, like, superhero movies recently, or maybe Sonic 2 recently got out? It's not a superhero movie, but it's a video game adaptation movie. But Sonic the movie, the Hedgehog, have you seen it?
I haven't seen it. No, we worked on the first one. We didn't work on the second one yet.
I swear, like, something told me that, I swear I'm not lying. I didn't check, like, the movies you worked on. I just assumed, like, this Technicolor seems like the type of studio that works on Sonic,
Yeah.
And yeah. How about the second one?
I think after, what was it, Jungle Book, there was a streak of, because of the technology they developed for fur and creatures and animals. Then they did Lion King. So I think now, whenever it has to do with creatures, animals, Detective Pikachu, and things like that, right now we're like the prime studio to do that type of work. So a lot of that content is coming our way.
Wait a second. Were you guys, the Technicolor, in charge of the first rendition of the Sonic the Hedgehog for the first movie where everyone kind of roasted the Sonic? Do you remember the first trailer of the Sonic the Hedgehog 1? The Sonic design kind of looked just not so great, and they redesigned it again. Do you remember that whole thing?
Yeah. So basically, the art department, we came in when that was happening. Like I forgot what studio was working on it, or if it was our studio doing the VFX. I don't remember. But as an art department, we were brought in, and they told us,
fix this mess.
No, I don't know. It wasn't like fix it, but they told us, like, hey, like, we're gonna redo this movie, kind of thing, and so this is what's, these are, we got a brief and stuff, something like that. So I know we worked on it. I just don't remember how early or how late we came in that movie. But yeah, I remember the whole controversy, and yeah, it was funny.
I mean, if you watched or played any of the Sonic games, you knew that. Let me just put it lightly. It wasn't very pleasant to the eye, the first design. Let's just put it that way. But the second design, but the second design was actually super good. Honestly, great job.
Well, I didn't do it. I don't remember who did it. I just
no, but on Technicolor team, anyone, yeah, good job.
Yeah, no, I with anything like that, as big as Sonic, is usually a team effort. It's a bunch of people working towards something. Yeah. Well, that's one of the best things about working at Technicolor, and I guess at any studio where you get to know your peers well. It's like, it's really, I always feel very supported. Like, when I cannot, get something to look the way I want, or I'm struggling with design, there's always another artist next to me that I can reach out to, be like, hey, like, I need a hand, like, and I love that from the department.
Yeah, and there's this thing about it I've recently been seeing a lot, like the headlines. I think you can even hear it as well. There's a lot of, like, recent call outs of, like, workspace, toxic workspace and office culture and behavior in general. I mean, from what I'm hearing, that it seems like Technicolor has figured that out. It's a great place, like, great people, and that's awesome. But Blizzard, like, a couple of months ago, it's been just on a train wreck of, like, the whole thing, what's happening there. And a lot of, like, there was this architecture firm in actually Los Angeles that had a huge, like, actual headline where there was, like, there were some weird, like, allegations of, like, weird workspace, like, environments and stuff like that. And from your experience of, working in Technicolor and stuff, what are some of the red flags people should look out for when they're trying to apply for a studio, basically?
Yeah, I think I'm very fortunate because, Technicolor is a massive company, and I'm in this, like, small team in Los Angeles. And so basically what happens in my department is like a bubble. and I am not really sure what happens outside of that bubble. Like I'm really well protected by my production managers and my art director. They're really good at, like being that wall and allowing us to be very creative while they deal with the mess and the emails and all that stuff. So I'm really fortunate. So I would say when you're looking for a company, I would try to see, how protected you're going to be from politics or from, the things that have nothing to do with art. I mean, maybe you enjoy that and then you decide to be more of that bridge. But if you don't, then I would try to ask those hard questions. And I know when I joined the company, the first thing I asked is like, what does crunch time look like here? Like, what is crunch time here? And I had the best answer I've ever heard. It's like my art director at the time said like, oh, we don't do crunch time. I'm like, what do you mean? It's like, sometimes it gets busy, I may ask you to stay like 1 hour after work or 2, but we aim to not have crunch time. And I was just like, oh, really? And it was true. And you know what? Because they were so good at taking care of us, whenever I see my art director struggling or like, oh shit, like we need to deliver this and we're not gonna finish, I don't care staying the extra hours.
You feel bad for not working hard for them.
Yeah. Now I want to give back to the company because they've been taking care of me for so long. So I am super fortunate. I cannot tell you how much the LA branch of Technicolor, I mean, where I'm at, how good it's been to me and I think to my peers. It's a really healthy environment. So I would just say, when you're about to join the job, make sure you're interviewing them too. It's not just make sure that it's something you're comfortable with.
Yeah, exactly. And especially like, that's kind of interesting that you mentioned also crunch time. I don't know, have you heard the news of like the new Witcher video game, installment in the Witcher franchise is on their construction right now, all right? And here's like a very interesting headline I saw on Twitter the other day. Apparently, there's going to be no crunch time for Witcher series, so it might take like 9 years for it to develop. They're going to take 9 years because for Cyberpunk they announced it on 2012, and as you've probably seen, I think it was the early 2021, which was announced. It wasn't. It was full of bugs basically, and it was because of the crunch time culture and all of that. They were so much under pressure, and because of that, they learned a lesson. And the art director said, until I'm under I think the board of art supervisions or something like that, there's going to be no crunch time. And even for the game Hades, have you played the game Hades?
No, I haven't.
I think it was one of the game of the years of 2020s, which amazing game, by the way. Like, I'm not gonna say it, just go Google it. Awesome game. And it even won, I think, in the literature award for the first time. A video game won a literature award, a prestigious literature award or something. And the thing is, one of the main interesting things about the development of the game was that there was a forced vacation policy, which means they have no right to overwork themselves, the people who work on the project, which is something like super interesting. And actually the quality of the game, everything from the sound, the music, the animation, like every single thing about the game was high quality. Like that's what astounded me. And the amount of dialogues and voice actings and just, oh my God, like hundreds of hours of dialogues and voice actings for like just a relatively small game, but I was kind of amazed, like what actually like taking care of the people who work on a project, does to a project.
Yeah. Oh, it does wonders because when you care about the people you're working for, then you put your best self out there. You just and especially when the culture is like a team culture, that to be creative. Feeling like you cannot fail is actually very healthy. Like I know that if I screw up, I have a teammate next to me who can catch me and be like, okay, no worries, from here on I have it. And then next time when that person's falling, you can catch them and stuff. And so working without that fear, working on just like being very creative just is what generates the best work. So So I hope more studios slowly realize that creativity works very differently from maybe other things. You cannot push creativity out of people. That's not gonna work.
Yeah, exactly. And but on the other hand, a lot of the animators working, and not just animators, people who worked on this series are chain. There has been like, a lot of like, people who coming out of the woodworks and saying they were like criminally underpaid. People who worked on our chain.
Mm.
But still, it was like an amazing piece of, animation and working and stuff like that. But yeah, in the end of the day, creativity comes from someone who's like, actual, like basically effort and quality comes from someone who's actually well rested, has no worries, like not no worries, but you get the point. Like it's not under like mental pressure, like negative toxic pressure. You get the best
Yeah.
result. As basic as that.
Yeah, I think it also they have this what is it, the triangle of like, so basically, do you care about the project you're working on? Yes, no. Are you being paid well? Yes, no. Do you like the people you work with? I think it's those three things. And so as long as a couple of those are being met, usually the work can be done. It doesn't mean that it's the best it doesn't mean that it's the best way to do it, or like you can very easily burn people out. I know people who've left the industry because even if they're amazing artists, they just like have to take these super long breaks because they get broken by the industry. So yeah, I mean, I'm sure that people can work under stress, but I don't know. I really believe that people are their best when they are happy. So
Of course.
why not try to do that as a studio?
Yeah, and all right, now here's an interesting question. What is the first art job paycheck you ever got? Basically, the first ever paycheck you ever got with art. What was it for? When was it? Like the whole story, basically.
The first paycheck from art?
Yeah, the first money you made out of art.
Actually, it was in high school. I don't know if this counts, but I was I took the pizza. I worked at a pizza place, and I was like, "Oh, this is not for me." And so there was this lady who was doing faux painting. I don't know if you know what that is. Faux painting, like you go to rich people's houses and they want a wall looking like marble or like wood. So you faux paint. You like fake the paint to make it look like different materials.
Oh, the texture, basically.
Like texturing, but it's a bit more complex. Like it's like next level texturing, customized. So anyway, besides that, we would also do murals. So like I got to paint a mural of Tuscany, Italy, in an Italian restaurant. Or like at model homes, I had to paint kids' rooms with, put like kids on a surfboard and things like that. So I was painting really large acrylic murals of different things, and for a high school job it was like perfect. And I would say that was my first like real money creating art.
All right, awesome. And well, here's a part where the people who are watching the episode on YouTube are going to be much more happy about, which is the sketchbook tour section of the podcast. Well, what do we have for today?
Okay, so I really don't sketch much, but when I'm doing taxes or I'm on an important phone call, that's when I have paper around me and I just start sketching. So you asked me if I had anything around, so I just, hopefully you can see, maybe.
Yeah, we can see.
Let me know if it's focused.
Yeah, it's focused.
Yeah, so like this is for nothing. This is just me like drawing as I'm talking on the phone. Hopefully my social security is not written in there, but
No worries.
this character from Dragon Ball, I think, came to my mind, and I was like, I wonder if I remember this
from the imagination.
Yeah, and I just like start drawing, and I'm always on the phone. Just so if you can see, there's a lot of like faces just being drawn there, and like I'm not really thinking much about how or why I'm doing it. It's mainly just my other side of my other half of the brain kind of going through the motions on its own.
Awesome, man.
Yeah, I think that's it. That's what I have around me. I wish I had more stuff, but most of my sketches have most of my days spent digitally, and this is the moment where I do pencil. Is when I'm in important phone calls.
No worries, man. Thanks so much. And for anyone who's listening to this on Spotify or Castbox, do check out the YouTube version if you want to see the sketches. That, like, just go watch the YouTube. What are you doing in audio? I mean, honestly, go subscribe to the channel. Like, just selling out. All right. All right. So, and the next thing is, who are some of your favorite artists and designers that have inspired you the most? I know, tough questions. Artists are not good with names. I get that. But the first names that pop into your mind, what are they?
Definitely. What is the name of the Russian artist? Repin. I think that's his name. Yeah, I'm super bad with names, but I would say it's a traditional, an old master. I think it's Repin, like Repin. It's his last name. And then from more current ones, I really learned a lot from Steve Houston and Kevin Chen. Those guys like doing like anatomy and stuff, and they inspired me from the moment I arrived in LA. I always gravitated to their sketches and like their charcoals and stuff. And then from a more concept art kind of world, I would say like Jamie Jones was always like, like the painterly style. And just how efficient his strokes are, definitely. But I would say, I mean, if you don't mind, I can just tell you exactly the name. I have the sketches, right?
Sure thing. No worries.
It's like I have a folder of all of this work that I love, and
in your inspiration folder, right?
Exactly.
Everyone needs one of those.
Oh my God, it's the best. And every time I lose track of sometimes like why I'm doing what I'm doing, I like to look at this inspiration thing and be like, oh, this is, I love this stuff.
Awesome, man.
Yeah, so the name is Ilya Repin. It's ILYAREPIN. I would say he's like one of my top artists ever. He's from the 19th century, I think.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, if anyone Googles him, you'll find a lot of paintings that I'm sure you've seen before. I don't know if this brings a picture, but there's a painting of like a procession in the desert where people are carrying like a saint or something. And, this is the guy who painted it. But even his sketches and everything he did was like amazing.
Way out of his time, right?
Way. Yeah. So, I think he's amazing. And, I would say Kevin Chen and Steve Houston from today are like two of my favorites too.
Awesome. And well, I mean, we talked about a lot of the office culture and just, a lot of like, soft, just other aspects of like the art industry. But the main questions I wanted to ask you as well, since you're a professional working in the industry with a lot of experience, is what any main advice and tips do you have for someone who wants to get into the industry for when it comes to resume and portfolio and stuff like that?
Yeah, I would say spend most of your time in your portfolio, and maybe lie in your resume like everyone else. Just like, honestly, what people care about the most is like you having a really clear understanding of the basics. At the studio, we're aware that it's hard to gain experience without being someone giving you the chance, but it's really hard to give a chance to someone who's still not understanding perspective, value, and things like that. So if you take care of that, of like the basics, then we can teach you how to use software or like the techniques and things like that. So I always tell people when they they start asking me about a new software or something like that. I'm like, that's gonna take you a month or two to learn, but the basics, that's gonna take longer. So don't put that away. So I would say that's advice number one. Number two is make it. Portfolio pieces are really hard to make because you basically have to be the director of the movie, the screenwriter, you have to put many hats. And I see a lot of artists just like creating these very complex concept art pieces that, end up not looking great because they had to do so much that I call it, they burned their eyes. They looked at this piece for like 4 months. So now it's no longer a very good painting. So what I would say is grab a book, grab an IP that already exists and treat that as your script. Something that we're all very familiar with, so that when people look at it, they immediately be like, oh, that's like a remake of XXX, whatever IP you like. So I would say make it easy. So at the studio, a lot of times we have to design a keyframe, but we received the 3D model already because that's been designed like a year earlier. So that, you see a lot of paintings from movies and they look amazing. You're like, oh, how did they do that so fast? And like, well, many times we have help from other departments. So if you have that in mind, think of how you can help yourself by deciding, am I doing a keyframe? Is it a frame to inspire? Is it a piece of cinematography? Then that means I don't necessarily have to design every element in it. Or do I want to be the designer of this character? Then that means the shot doesn't have to be that cinematographic, because the point is design of one character. So it's like, come to present your work to us. We don't want to see that you do everything, but we want to see that whatever you do it very well. I hope that makes sense. Yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, it does. I mean, it definitely does, 100%. And all right, here's the thing. I think either from my side or your side, I think the internet connection is getting a bit uncivil. Oh, I think it's my side. Oh my God, Jesus. So, I mean, fortunately, we're at the last two questions. The next one is, what area beside the area you're working on right now, which is, of course, art and design and everything, would you be interested to explore and learn in the future? Let me rephrase the question. Sorry. Aside from art, what other hobbies do you have and would you like to explore when you got more free time?
I cook a lot.
Awesome.
Back in college, I had a teacher who always said, back in college, this teacher used to say the best way to work out your creativity when you're not drawing or designing is to be in the kitchen and try to create something from scratch and like not look at a recipe, just try to break down a process. So I would say for me is cooking and just like trying new food. And then the thing that I would like to explore maybe in the future would be to actually film, to actually grab the camera and shoot something. But I think I'm waiting, maybe also write a little bit, but I think I'm waiting to have something to say. I don't want to just put something out there for the sake of just putting something out there. I think I'm waiting for, like a moment where it's like, oh, I have this thing to tell the world, and probably that's when I'll decide to jump into that, into that realm. For now, I think between my work and then cooking and just traveling and experiencing life, I think that I have enough.
All right, awesome. And well, we've reached the last and final question of the podcast, which is called Final Words. All right, let me explain. Imagine in a limited amount of time that you have an opportunity, a window of time to leave a message or messages as a human being to another human being. And that another human being that you're going to leave a message to is anyone who's going to listen to this episode at any point of time in the future. In that situation, what do you have to say?
Oh my God, so much pressure. I feel like I'm talking to people in the future already. I would say remember to enjoy the process of learning, because that never ends. You'll never get to the end because there's no such thing. So make sure that whatever you're doing, however you're doing it, that you are enjoying it. And if you're not, take a break and then re-examine why why you're doing that thing. And I think just like stopping every once in a while to think and then continue is very useful. So yeah, just make sure to enjoy the process of learning and making art.
All right, I think that's a wrap. And thank you so much for coming by. Where can people contact you if they had any questions? Is there Instagram okay?
Yeah, Instagram or LinkedIn are both good ways to reach out to me.
Do people really use LinkedIn that much in art community, like in the studios and stuff like that, or just art session is enough? Like, I'm just wondering.
LinkedIn is, so the thing is, in every in every
Corporate
studio, yeah, the people making the first call is usually people who use LinkedIn. Then they send your work to they send your work to the art director. But a lot of the recruiters are still very familiar with LinkedIn and that platform. So actually, that's how I got this job where I'm currently at. I sent my portfolio to a recruiter through LinkedIn, and then they passed it to another recruiter, and that arrived at who was my art director at that time. Yeah, I mean, we use ArtStation sometimes, but it just I don't necessarily see it as a communication platform. It's really good to showcase, but for communication and keeping messages organized, I think that's why LinkedIn works well. Yeah.
No, I mean, the bad thing about LinkedIn is that when you message someone, you can't delete your message later, because I had a problem with the credit card company here, and I just wrote basically 2 years ago, wrote a long paragraph to the CEO of the company. I mean, the guy never checked his messages, but I was kind of like, awestruck that, oh, you can't delete your message actually, because my problem got solved later on by the support. But I was kind of worried because it was like a money issue, and yeah. Yeah, that's what I found out about LinkedIn. All right, thanks so much for coming by, and thank you to anyone who tuned in this episode, and till next episode, take care everyone. See you later. Bye.